Tonight, we have a cryptic hint of what Asa Ellerup, better known as Mrs. Rex Heuermann, may have seen inside the family's ransacked home in Massapequa Park when she and the children returned there yesterday. Today, Ellerup told the Daily Mail, quote, "I got over the hurdle of what I saw inside." She offered no further explanation, but is also quoted as saying, "The sheer depression of what I saw was enough trauma." Whether she's talking about what was found inside her house or the condition of the house, the way it was left after the 12-day search by police, that part is still a mystery. I'm guessing it's just the fact that the house was so ransacked. But were there signs in that house that were missed by Heuermann's family all those years, or perhaps missed by neighbors? Joining me now is Dr. Carole Lieberman. She is a forensic psychiatrist who's provided expert witness testimony in high-profile murder cases, and also Lisa Ribacoff, a polygraph expert and private investigator who's been following this case from the very beginning. Lisa and Carole, thank you so much for being with us. I want to start with you, Lisa. What do you make of Heuermann's wife's comments, the sheer depression of what I saw was enough trauma? What do you think she's talking about, Lisa?
I would hope that what she's discussing is pertaining to the trauma of going back to the only home that she's known since emigrating from Iceland, to the destruction and everything that was turned over while the executed search warrant was done. And again, with regards to search warrants, anything is fair game as long as it fits within the statutes of the search warrant. And we all know that the individuals that had executed the search warrant are not responsible for putting everything back where they found it. So I think a lot of it has to do with the turmoil pertaining to the condition of the house, maybe things that were broken that she did hold close and personal to her, maybe some childhood relics of her children were taken. So there could be a lot of family history that not only is destroyed because of the alleged actions of their father and husband, but also because of the execution of the search warrant.
Yeah, I just can't imagine what that family is going through. I really can't. And I cannot imagine what the inside of that house looked like. They were there for almost 2 weeks going through everything. We saw what they did in the yard, digging up the yard. Imagine what they did in the house. It's hard to imagine what the family walked into. Carole, you say consistent observations of unusual behavior over time is the best indicator of whether or not a person is living a double life. Explain what you mean by that.
Well, in other words, there are a number of different signs that might make you or should make you suspicious that someone is a serial killer, but no one sign in particular. I mean, for example, the basic sign is that the person is odd. He doesn't seem to fit together, all his pieces, and doesn't seem to fit in the surroundings. And, you know, what's interesting is that when they've been talking to people in his school, all through his school years, and they talk about that he didn't seem to fit in, he was odd, and so on. Heuermann's wife is an enigma. I think she's very fascinating. You know, I don't think that she didn't know anything. I'm not saying that she knew that she had any evidence or that she knew specifically that he murdered these women, but they've been married for over 25 years. When couples are married and one of the people has an affair, the other person really knows deep down. They may not see any evidence, but they know that there's something going on. And so I think that she knew that there was a dark side to him and that there was something dark going on. But, you know, part of it is denial. She didn't want to know. And part of it is, and this is kind of interesting, that she was living in a fantasy world of her own. You know, she was very involved in comic books. She went to comic book conventions and so on. And she also gave herself a name for social media, Elven Maiden, which is a name from a fantasy video game. So it seems like she was just wrapped up in comics and video games and didn't want to see what was going on with her husband.
Yeah, I've wondered, you know, once all of this went down and he was arrested, does she then think back to times like, oh my gosh, I think this was weird, something maybe she didn't realize at the time, but now sort of makes sense. Lisa, what else do we know about her? I mean, Carole brought up the fact that she was a comic book fan and that she had this interesting social media presence, but do we know much else, what she did for a living or, you know, what her life was like?
The only information that we've been made part of the public is that she did maintain this comic book lifestyle. She did have this alternate sense of reality. And the first thing that I would think of as an investigator is that clearly she has some sort of internal trauma where she's creating a secondary lifestyle to almost suppress what she actually has going on in her day-to-day life, routines, family, interpersonal relationships. I mean, the only thing that we've seen and learned so far, or at least one of the main facts, is that she was going ahead and using food stamps to go ahead and purchase groceries. We don't know what the financial status is of the family itself, as well as their assets pertaining to properties, real estate, as well as their current financial standings. But for her to possibly be under financial control at the same time also creates a level of trauma where she doesn't have the capability of buying herself expenditures for her children or herself, or possibly living a lifestyle that she does see that her neighbors are also residing in.
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.